Okay, welcome everybody to today's live webinar, Intro to Twitter. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce both of us. My name is Rebecca Van Dusen. I'm a library associate here at the Champaign Public Library. And teaching our webinar today is Susan Winkler. She is our technology librarian. You've probably seen us both before teaching and hosting webinars. We also both work at the information desk, and you'll probably see us around the library if you're in. But concerning our Zoom environment today, I want to go over a couple of things. So if you're looking at the bottom left corner of your Zoom window, you're going to see some controls, and those concern the like how you change your microphone or speaker. So that would be that speaker button. We also have controls that are in the center of your Zoom screen. We have a chat bubble there and a raise hand button. So the chat bubble will allow you to type chat messages to us throughout the webinar. So those could be questions that you have. Feel free to anytime put things in there that you want us to help answer for you. That's what we're here for. If you have those questions, please write to us in the chat. While Susan's teaching and demonstrating parts of the webinar, I'll be in the background helping to answer chats and posing those questions to Susan. We also have that raise hand option as well. That is for asking questions. So if you want to speak your question out loud through your microphone, you can use that raise hand button. That will sort of indicate to us that you'd rather do that than type in the chat. But basically the main thing is don't be afraid to ask us questions. Don't be afraid to interrupt. That's what we're here for. We want to help you answer those questions. So I think that's pretty much it from us. How are you today, Susan?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Rebecca. I'll add to that we do record the webinar, and we will put that, we do send a follow-up email for everyone. And within that follow-up email, we'll have the link to the recording, which we post on YouTube. I think you might have mentioned that already.
I didn't. You're okay. Perfectly supportive with that message.
We always want to tick mark all of our boxes of,
yes, you're right.
of what we want to make sure we convey. And we do have a handout for today, and Rebecca will put that in the chat here in just a moment for everyone as well. And if we're ready, I'll go ahead and get started and we'll jump right in. I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint here in just a moment. And then we'll get started. I'm excited. And actually, I will say that Twitter, for me, I have not been on Twitter very often anymore because in my own life. But for here at the library, so every time we teach this class, we do go in, we take new screenshots if something has changed. And there has been a bit of change for Twitter from the last time we taught the workshop, which was in, I believe, 2020. So there's enough that's changed that we did some new screenshots. So this one, new handout has been updated. But if you do notice anything, let me know. Let's go ahead and I will share my screen here. All righty. Let me move this down to the corner here. And we will get started. Alrighty, so I'm hoping that everyone can see getting started intro to Twitter.
Yes, we see the front slide there.
Perfect, okay. So we'll spend just a couple of minutes talking about Twitter and the Twitter environment. And then most of what we'll do today will be actually a live demo using our iPad that we have here at the library so that we actually give you the experience on a mobile device. Generally speaking, most people will be using Twitter on a mobile device, either a phone or a tablet. This one is a social media service that does have a computer component too, where you can use it from a browser if you want. Some people prefer that method. Some people prefer the mobile method. So if you want at any point, feel free to ask, and we will switch to the computer browser version so you can see what it looks like on a larger screen too, instead of on mobile. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about what Twitter is, and then we'll go right into a demo of all of the different facets of Twitter. We'll work with the navigation and your settings, how to pick a profile photo and how to edit your profile. We'll talk a little bit about search and how to search for specific topics or hashtags. We'll talk about how to follow someone and what is your home feed. And then we'll get into actually doing some tweets and what kinds of tweets you can make. And then we'll talk a little bit about moments and notifications and messages and bookmark these and lists. These are all different things that you can do to help communicate with other members of the Twitter community and ways to keep in touch with each other. And then bookmarks and lists are ways for you to organize your Twitter experience. And then if you want, at the end, there's time to, in our in-person workshop, we usually have time at the end for people to create an account if they want. And today, if you're interested in that, I can show you that too. And then I'll show you also how to log out, because it is, in case you share your device with someone else, logging out is a little bit more complicated on a mobile device. It's not as obvious. So I want to make sure I show people how to see that. Okay. Any questions before we begin?
I don't see any questions so far.
Okay, we'll dive right in. Okay, so what is Twitter? Essentially, Twitter is a social media and social networking site. It's lumped into the same group as Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and other social media sites, where the general trend with these social media sites is that the main purpose is for you to interact with others in the online environment. So you might be interacting with individual people, celebrities, companies, or following different businesses or social organizations that you are interested in. It is considered what we call a microblogging site, and we'll talk a little bit more about what microblogging means. And that's not a term that's used very much anymore. It was used more when Twitter first came out. If you're familiar with blogging, it's sort of the sequential number of, creating a blog post would be, basically like an online diary. And so it was sequential posting. So they talk about Twitter as a microblogging site, meaning because it limits how many characters you can actually put out into a tweet, it was considered like blogging, but on a tiny scale, because you could only put so many characters into something at each time when you were sharing something. We don't use that term so much anymore. More often, it's just considered a social media platform. Okay, you are allowed to share tweets, and we'll talk, of course, primarily about tweets today. Tweets basically being anything you want to talk about or share or discuss. Tweets can consist of text, links, videos, photos, memes, retweets, and I should update this and include GIFs, and we'll define what GIFs are in a little bit when we get to that section too. But, or, if you retweet someone else, you basically are, they've tweeted something and you say, oh, okay, that's really cool. I think the people that interact with me would also find that useful. So I'll go ahead and retweet it, which means you basically are sharing what they've shared. Okay. You can connect to friends. It connects users to friends to see the content that they share. So if you follow organizations or people and they tweet something out, you'll see that in your home feed, and then you can tweet it to other people too if you want. And it's a lot of content generating of content, both by you and others. Okay, so again, you're connecting to organizations and companies, celebrities. Also, when Twitter first came out, it was considered very useful for breaking news, because a lot of stuff that was at that time not getting a lot of major media coverage would be stuff that might be covered by tweets by individual people who are basically like citizen journalists on the ground, observing and watching what's going on. Okay. You can also message other users with a direct message. A direct message is a more private way to communicate with someone else on Twitter. And as I said at the beginning, you can access it from a computer, a tablet, or a phone. So you have 3 different options with this one. There are some social media sites that are sort of optimized for the mobile environment. And Twitter is one that I think kind of, it sort of straddles the fence. It's you can do it in either way and you don't really lose anything from the experience. Okay, any questions about that before I move on to navigation?
I don't see any.
Okay, so what we're gonna do now, basically I will go through just this little beginning navigation thing on the visual screen here, and then we'll switch to the live demo. And then everything else that's in the handout, just like we typically have for our tech workshops, is gonna be basically a step-by-step. What does this icon mean? What does it do? So we'll go ahead and do that here in a minute. But first, I want to point out the major primary source of place of navigation with Twitter is the options menu. And if you've had a Twitter account before in the past and you were on a phone, usually it appears on the bottom. So it would be, down here where you see this, the little feather, basically right next to the feather down here would be all of these options. On our iPad, it's actually on the left-hand side. So you'll have the options menu over here where most of the things that you might do on Twitter is going to be there. Down at the bottom here, though, the most important one probably is composing a tweet, which is going to be this little feather with a plus sign. And that will be that you're gonna get you started on tweeting yourself. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and jump out of the PowerPoint here. We'll put that down below. I'll stop sharing my screen there, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on my my other camera here. So we'll turn on the document camera. Give it just a second to load up here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and log in here. So we have already downloaded the Twitter app to our iPad. So here is our iPad, and when I want to go to Twitter, we actually have it in a folder called Social. And then you'll notice Twitter, excuse me, the logo for Twitter is a little bird, white bird on a blue background. So I'm gonna go ahead and just open that up to get us started. And if you'll notice here on the left-hand side, like I mentioned, is where we have that options menu. And a lot of what we're gonna be doing today is going through what each of these different icons means. And where we're gonna start is with settings. And the way to get to your settings, because a lot of stuff you can control in your settings would be things like your content preferences, notifications, and privacy and security. So I do think it's important to point those out. So to get to your settings, you're gonna want to tap on this little circle here that at the moment has your profile photo, if you've created a profile photo. If you haven't created a profile photo yet, it'll look like just a little person. And we're going to go ahead and tap on that. And it's going to take us to our profile. Now, within our profile, there's a couple of things we can see. Up here at the top, this is our username and our name. So when someone mentions us on Twitter or wants to talk to us, they're going to put the @ symbol in front of Champaign PL. And then that's going to let us know, and we're going to get a notification that someone has said something to us using that @Champaign PL. Okay, tells us where we're located, when we joined, how many people we are people or organizations we're following, and then how many people or organizations are following us. And then it's going to tell us our tweets, how many tweets we've made, tweets and replies, and media and likes. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. If you're looking here and we want to go ahead and jump into our settings and get to our privacy settings, we can also do that by tapping here on these 3 little dots. So if you see the 3 little dots down below, right there, that's going to be basically anytime you see 3 little dots and you're in the online environment, it usually means more options or other things that you can do. So if we tap on those 3 little dots, we're going to get some other options of things that we could do or what we could look at. And we're going to go down to where it says settings and privacy. So this is where you can change all of those things about how you receive notifications and content and things that you can control. So we're going to go into settings and privacy. Okay, so here you can see you can change information from your account. So if, for example, you needed to change your email address associated with your Twitter account, you could do that here. Your security and account access is going to help you determine if you've ever logged in from a different device or to check your usage of different apps and everything that's connected to your account. Twitter Blue is something new that involves a subscription. So it is a monetized Twitter. We won't cover that too much today. It's still a fairly new thing. But I do want to point out privacy and safety here. So let's go ahead and tap on privacy and safety and take a little moment here to take a look at the privacy and safety settings. So within your Twitter activity, you can control information about the audience and tagging of what people see on Twitter. You can manage your tweets and what happens with the content that you share or see. You can also change the content to decide what you see on Twitter based on your preferences. So that home feed that we'll talk about in a few minutes, you can customize that home feed by changing information here in the content that you see. Muting and blocking folks. If someone is harassing you on Twitter, or you've gotten, you get too many notifications, or they're doing too much, you can spend some time using the mute and block functions to better manage who can see what you've got and what you're doing, and then how they can get a hold of you. Okay, direct messages, we're going to talk more about that in just a moment. But this, you can also go into settings to manage who can do that with you. Okay, and your discoverability and contacts. Then your data sharing and off Twitter activity. It's good to take a moment to just spend some time going through these to see what you can control. So for example, if you did not want to share with people that you're located in Champaign, Illinois, you might turn off your location information. The data sharing with business partners, you might also say, okay, I don't want to share information with Twitter's advertisers, and you can pay a little bit of attention to that. You can also do the same thing with the ads preferences, where because Twitter is free, they do make money off of ads. So you will see ads in your Twitter feed, but you can customize those ads a little bit with the ad preferences section here. Okay, so I'm going to jump back by hitting that little back arrow up at the top. This back arrow here will get you back to the previous screen. And a little bit later on, we'll spend some time with notifications as well. And you can also I encourage you to check out these other parts of your settings. We don't have a whole lot of time to go over them today, but I do want you to know that they're there. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and come back here. And we'll talk a little bit about, the other thing I wanted to cover with privacy and security is that you may find the term is trolling, which is when someone's basically being mean or attempting to bully you online. Then you can go in and mute and block them using that, using the settings and privacy, and going into privacy and safety, and then muting and blocking. So here's where you would find who you've muted and how to mute them. Okay, there is something also called spamming, and spamming is when someone is basically posting similar content across a whole bunch of accounts, or they're posting, creating fake accounts, posting multiple updates in an attempt to manipulate and make something seem more important than it is on Twitter. And so there's a whole section in your handout about spamming and what that is and what it means. And that is something that Twitter will, they will, and I shouldn't say the algorithm will flag that, and you may end up seeing some folks that say, oh, they've been banned from Twitter because of all the stuff that they've done. So we'll go back now and talk a little bit more about the profile. So again, to get to your profile, if you're on your home feed here. So if you see here where it says home, this means that this is our home feed. In the home feed is basically going to be your tweets, as well as the tweets of others that you follow, and some of those advertisement tweets as well. Okay. If I want to change things about my profile, like say my profile photo, I can come down to my little profile circle page here. This will show me my profile. If I want to edit my profile, I can just tap up here where it says edit profile. And then I can change certain things about my profile. So in this case, if I wanted to change my location, say I moved somewhere else, I could change my location. I could add a little bio, give people a little bit of information about myself. And I can also change the two photos that are here. This is the profile photo. And then the larger, longer one is your cover photo. Okay, so let's go ahead and change our profile photo. So to change my profile photo, I can tap on that little camera there, and then I can say upload photo. And then it's going to give me, and these are all the screenshots I took earlier today, but it's going to give me access to the photo gallery on my device, which in this case is an iPad. And I could go through and I could find, you know, whatever photo I would like to put up there as my profile photo. And I thought maybe I'd just pick something kind of fun. Let's pick like some blankets here. So we're going to go ahead and make it blankets. So we just put the check mark, figure out what part we want to do, and then you would tap apply and then done. And that's going to change that profile photo. If I want to change my cover photo, it's basically the same thing. I just tap on the photo and then I would pick whatever photo I want to use. And I think for this one, I picked one. Before that was, let's see, just zooming through these kind of fast. These are different photos from different events we've had here at the library. I'm going to pick this one here. And then all I would have to do after I've tapped it, and then outside, oops, gotta come back here. Let's tap, you just pick one. I'm gonna pick this one. Okay, so then I've done that, and then it should let me update it. There we go. And so now I can pick what part of the image I would like. And then again, you can tap apply and then done. And you could edit the photo too if you wanted. And then it'll go ahead and add it in there as your cover photo. Okay, once you've done those things, just make sure you tap save to save your updates. And then Twitter's gonna ask if you want to let everyone know that you've changed your profile pic. If you want people to know it, you can tap where it says tweet it. If you're not interested in telling people you've updated your profile picture, you can just click the little X right there, which is what we're gonna go ahead and do. Okay, so now you'll see that the little profile photo over here has changed, and so has our cover image up here at the top. Okay, and that's how to change your photos. So when you get your account for the first time, you can also decide whether or not you want to use photos that would actually identify you, because these are public. So anything that you share, for the most part, anything you share on Twitter is going to be public, unless you opt to make it private, which would be something like a direct message. Otherwise, everything is pretty much public. So you might take into consideration whether or not you really want to have your profile photo be a photo of you or be a photo of something that's not necessarily identifiable. Okay. Okay, and then the other thing I want to mention real quick is that your username and the actual name might be different. So for example, in the handout, we use the example of the University of Illinois, and then the username and handle are slightly different. So the username is actually going to be this @Champaign PL for me, but the name that we're using on Twitter is PL Champaign. And the example in the handout, we've used University of Illinois, which is the name, but the username is @Illinois_Alma. Okay, so just to give you an idea. So the name on Twitter may be different than their username. Okay, any questions so far about profiles and updating your profile information?
No, I don't see any.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on then to one of the main things that I think a lot of people do on Twitter, which is search for things and search for fun stuff. So if you see in our options menu here along the left-hand side, the icon here, so this thing that looks a little bit like a birdhouse, at least I think it looks a little bit like a birdhouse, is your home feed. Same as, you know, if you were to click something else and then tap on the blue bird up here, it'll bring you to your home feed here. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about the home feed soon. But I also want to mention that when you search Twitter, you can use the magnifying glass over here. And since we have a iPad here, which has a little bit more space on the screen, you also can see, you can also search Twitter over here with the magnifying glass. Now on a phone, you might only see one magnifying glass. And in general, with technology, if you see a magnifying glass and it doesn't have a plus or minus sign near it, it means search. If there's a plus or minus sign, it probably means that it can be zoomed in or zoomed out. But in this case, since it doesn't have a plus or minus, we know that this means search. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys, ask you folks out there, is there anything you want me to search for on Twitter? If you do have something in mind, you can put it in the chat and then we'll go ahead and search for it. So I'm giving you the opportunity for us to not search for cat videos today. We can search for something else.
I don't see anything in the chat so far.
Okay, so let's think about something. Well, okay, so for right now, right, here in Champaign, we might have some winter weather soon. So maybe we might search Twitter to see what the local news organizations are saying about the upcoming winter storm. So I might tap up here and then go ahead and search for winter storm. And then we'll put in, Champaign and see what happens. So this is me searching just for a general subject term. And then we'll tap search down here and we'll see what happens. And we'll see what we get. Okay, so it looks like, and we're going to go through each one of these across the top that says top latest. We'll go through that in just a second. But a general search for anything subject area wise will bring up those key terms. So since we put the word Champaign in there and storm, winter storm, that's why we're getting this as one of our first results. And you can see they've bolded winter storm and Champaign because those are the terms that we've used up there. So if you really wanted to get immediate information, you might be able to look right here and say, okay, there's a storm watch and warning, and figure out when it's going to start and when it's going to go to. Twitter is really nice for things like winter weather, maybe traffic updates too. A lot of those things that are happening immediately that you want to find out about. So, okay, so then I could scroll down through this list and see what everybody else is talking about. You might also find that if there's a closure for some reason, inclement weather, and because there's inclement weather expected, there might be, maybe the city is closing or different businesses are closing. As long as they've used the terms winter storm and Champaign, you'll see it in here. Okay, so that's one example. I'm going to go ahead and come up here and we'll change our search term and let's search for a local organization. So maybe we'll search for CatSnap. And then again, if you have something you'd like me to search for, please go ahead and throw it in the chat. And Rebecca will let me know and we can see what's going on with that too. So here we go. I'm just going to put in CatSnap. CatSnap is a local rescue. And if I tap, so what I did there was I just put in CatSnap up here. And then what I'm finding are going to be people and organizations that it's going to search for with that term. Okay, so CatSnap Rescue, since I know it's a rescue organization, I'm going to assume it's this one, but I can tap on that to get more information about CatSnap and make sure that it's actually the organization that I'm looking for or that I wanted to follow. Okay, another way to search up here is to search by a hashtag. So if you're familiar with a hashtag, or you've seen, I think it was a late night TV show not that long ago where they were speaking in hashtags. You can still use hashtags on Twitter, and to put in a hashtag, it's just the number sign there, so hashtag, and then I can look for certain things based on a hashtag. So for example, if I wanted to do National Library Week, and see what's trend. And this is how you also get to things on Twitter that are trending, because as a hashtag gets used more and more often, it is likely to become a topic that will be considered trending on Twitter when it's so many people are talking about the same thing online. So we're going to just search for National Library Week and see what we get. Okay, so you can see here the last time someone posted about National Library Week would have been in April, because National Library Week actually happens in April. And you can see with this one that in this case, it's the Holocaust Museum, but then here right below that is the American Library Association, also sending something out about National Library Week. So does anyone have a hashtag that they would like me to search for? I'll take suggestions from Rebecca too. I'll put her on the spot.
I'm trying to think of one. Hashtag...
You might do like chocolate, maybe? I don't know. Valentine, because it's, it's February and people often think about chocolate.
Okay, that's a good one.
Let's try chocolate.
You know, my mind always gravitates towards cats, so I always have to like
yeah.
work against that.
And I gotta make sure I spell chocolate correctly too, because okay. So for example, now we've put hashtag chocolate. So here's the hashtag chocolate. Now, if I tap on hashtag chocolate here, it's also going to basically create that same search. So when you're looking through people's tweets that they've made and you're like, oh, that's a really interesting hashtag, I want to learn more about it. Don't forget that you can, anything that's blue is actually a link. So you can click on that hashtag link and go to that term, okay, and see what else they have to say about it. So here we've got some information. Okay, this is just going to make me want chocolate probably at this point. But there's somebody who posted about an Oreo shake. And then here, this is actually a good example of an ad. So, and we know that because it does not have the search term that we just put in there. There's no bolded hashtag for chocolate. So that's how we know that that one is an ad. Okay, so I've got some chocolate, coffee, things like that. You know, okay, so that's another thing. Now, if I go up here and I want to do what's the latest, so top means top in terms of Twitter's algorithm. Latest is going to be the most recent. So February means chocolate. See, they had the same idea I did. Chocolate. So there's also there's a National Dark Chocolate Day. Didn't know that, but maybe I want to learn more about it. Can tap on National Dark Chocolate Day and find out more about National Dark Chocolate Day. I can also pick people or places to talk about. So if I was done with searching for chocolate, let's say I just wanted to search for the location of Champaign, I could just search Champaign, and then we're going to get everything for Champaign. The latest information for where somebody has said Champaign right here. And then I can also do people. So if I do people here, here's the city of Champaign, University of Illinois, the Champaign Public Library, our official Twitter account. So if you do want to follow the Champaign Public Library, it's Champaign Pub Lib, rather than our demo account, which is the PL Champaign, which we use for technology workshops. We could follow the Champaign County Clerk's Office, the PD. So anyway, if you're looking for a specific, and you could look for a specific person too. If you know their username or name, you could put them up here and find a specific person too. Now Champaign's a good one to use too for photos, because if I put in Champaign and photos, we'll probably get some photos. Here comes the snowstorm. And you can see photos that also have to do with Champaign. Okay, and the same would be true for videos. So here's an example of where if I did put in cats, we'd probably get a whole lot of cat videos that show up there. So again, so searching is something you can do here to find people, topics. You know, I could pick gardening and just see what people are saying about gardening today. You can follow comedians, you can follow actors, you can follow companies and organizations. It's totally up to you based on what your interests are. Okay. Any questions about searching?
I don't see any questions so far.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and move on and we'll talk about following. So let's say I have searched for gardening and I'm looking at some of these results and I find that someone has a really great, let's go for people. So let's say we're looking at people and we're like, oh, gardening know-how. Hey, you can ask a gardening question and get an answer. Well, let's find out a little bit more about that. Okay, so here are some of their tweets. And maybe, oh, here's your, see how it says promoted tweet? That's the ones that you know are the ads. Okay, gardening know-how, avoiding common mistakes. If it seems like something that's useful, I can come up here and I can decide to follow that person or organization or Twitter account. So I'm going to go ahead and all to do that, all you have to do is tap follow. And then it's going to change that now you're following them. So now we are following the Twitter handle for gardening know-how. Okay. Then Twitter is nice enough to also give you some suggested other people to follow. Excuse me. So we could, you know, we could pick a set of accounts that work well or are topically similar, probably, and then follow those folks as well if we wanted to. And that's really all there is to following. One moment. Okay, I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. Are there any questions about following?
I don't see any.
So essentially, once you follow someone, it means that if I go back to my home feed here and I refresh it, and usually to refresh, you can just pull down. And you can see that even in the last couple of seconds, there's been maybe 5 minutes, there's been some updates to what we're talking about and who's tweeting and things. So that gardening know-how, once they put up a new tweet, it'll show up here at the top of this page too, and be put into this home feed. Okay, so that's information about following. The home feed is where all of your tweets will also show up here in the home feed, as well as the tweets and retweets of other people that you follow or other accounts that you follow, as well as your own stuff. So, and you can tune the home feed a little bit, again, by going into settings and tweaking, who shows up basically. Okay. Any questions about the home feed? And again, just remember that anytime you see a hashtag or anything in blue, it means it's a hyperlink and it means you can click on it. So sometimes if folks are just sharing links, like for example here, the Illinois.us residents, you could click on this link and it would take you out to the internet to that specific website. Okay.
I don't see any questions so far, by the way.
Okay, so let's go ahead and have some fun and make some tweets. So the first thing I'm going to do, if I want to make my own tweet, down here at the bottom where you see the feather with the little plus sign, this is when you compose. This is where you can tap to compose your own tweet. So I'll go ahead and tap there. And then now I can tell everybody what's happening or what I want to share with the world. And it can be anything. As long as it doesn't violate Twitter's terms of service. So I could tell people what what I enjoyed for lunch today. I could advertise for a particular business or, whatever we want to say. So I'm going to say what's happening right now. We are enjoying. Let's go ahead and say we're enjoying. Oh, sorry. Enjoying a Twitter tutorial online. And we can hashtag it with something like virtual learning or Champaign Public Library or however we would like to do. However we would like to call someone out if we want to. So let's say at Champaign Public Library. Okay, so notice that when I've done at, and we'll talk more about this in a second, this is considered a mention, and we'll talk more about mentions in a moment. But as soon as I put the @ sign and the name of the Twitter person that I follow, they will get a notification telling them that they've been mentioned somewhere. So I could go ahead and tap tweet, and then this is going to tweet that out to the world and to all of our followers. Okay. If I want to add anything else to this tweet, I can come down here. And if you see the little photo here, the little photo of mountains, that icon means that you can add a photo or a video. So if I tap on that, I could pick from my photos here and add a photo. If I want to add a GIF, which is basically I'll show you some GIFs. They're essentially little quick clips, shall we say, that may relate to how you're feeling, or if you're a cat and you're saying, please. So you can add a GIF if you'd like. You can also add a poll. So if I was going to tell people, the choice is enjoying a Twitter tutorial online. I love online learning, yes or no. And the new choice would be yes or no. You could make a poll. And then this would be if you want to share your current location. So if you're traveling and you want to tell people, I'm loving the being in a very warm, sunny location, you could tag your location that you're in. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and cancel that for a second. Okay, so if I'm gonna compose a tweet and say, let's go ahead and say enjoying time at Champaign Public Library. And we'll tag them there. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a photo. And maybe that photo is that same photo we had before of the library here. So we'll use this one and we'll say add. Now it's going to add that photo to our tweet. Okay. You can also, if it's a photo of people, you can say who's in the photo and you can tag those people in the photo. Okay. But so I'm going to go ahead and say, this is great. This is my tweet. And then I could just tap tweet right there. Oops. And that's going to put that tweet out there for me. So now my tweet has been sent. So it should show up pretty quickly here. See in here again, our home feed has already updated with the most recent post from Gardening Know-How that we just followed. Okay. If I go to my profile, that you remember our little circle down here, I can now see my tweet that I made 17 seconds ago. Okay. All right. So are there any questions about making a tweet? Just in general.
So far, I don't see any.
Okay, so a couple of things about tweeting. When you compose a new tweet, you have 280 characters to compose a tweet. So if what you want to say is going to take more space than 280 characters, you can do something called a thread, which means you tweet a couple of different tweets at the same time, and they all post at once. So if we wanted to do something like la, 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 and then you get to the end of it and you still have more that you want to say, you can tap this little plus sign down here, and that'll let you add another tweet. And then when you're ready, you can hit tweet all and it'll tweet them in sequence. Okay, and that's called a thread. Okay, if you decide that you don't want to do this and you hit cancel, you have the option to delete entirely, or you can save a draft of your tweet to tweet later. You used to be able to schedule tweets, but I think they've moved that. They've moved away from that and toward this save draft. And I imagine that that is going to be something that's going to be a premium feature eventually. But I don't know that for sure yet. So don't quote me on that. But you can save a draft of your tweet that then you're going to post later. Okay. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and delete it though. All righty. There's one other thing that I want to cover within tweets, and that is if you want to retweet someone else. So if I'm on my home feed, and let's say I think it would be very worthwhile for everyone to know that there's going to be a storm coming. And so let's say I'm going to retweet, let's see, the NWS Lincoln, Illinois, talking about the major winter storm. And I want to make sure, hey, anybody who follows me on Twitter, I want to make sure they also know that there's going to be a big storm coming. And maybe that will help them, because if they see it from me first, then maybe they'll be, they'll be aware and they can move to safety. This is why sometimes I think Twitter is especially helpful for traffic situations. So if there's a traffic accident and you happen to know that a lot of your followers happen to travel in the same area that you do, you could say, hey, there's an accident on, Springfield. So maybe don't take Springfield today, maybe take a different street, and you can help them avoid things like a traffic accident or things like that. Okay, so if I want to retweet this tweet from the NWS out of Lincoln, down here, I wonder if I can zoom in a little bit. I don't know that I can. No,
you can
I think
use
I'm going to have to do
on
it this way.
I'm
going to do it with the camera instead. Okay, so if you see down here, we've got a couple of different options underneath the tweet from someone else. The retweet button is this one that looks almost like the recycle symbol to me, but it makes sense because it's like one arrow going up and one arrow going down. So they're tweeting it and then you're tweeting it. If you tap on that, you can retweet it, or you can quote the tweet. So I'm going to just go ahead and tap retweet. And what that means is now, if I go back to my profile and I refresh by pulling down there, now you're going to see that. Let me zoom out here for a second. Come on, zoom out. if I zoom out, this is in my profile now, and I have retweeted the NWS Lincoln, Illinois. Okay. And that's where you'll see that it's been retweeted. And now their number just went from 87 to 88 because I retweeted it. Okay. Now, a couple of the other things that you see down here in this area, and I can go ahead and talk about them on this screen too. For every tweet that someone puts out there, a couple of other things you can do. Let me wait for it to focus again. Okay. The comments over here. So if you want to comment on someone's tweet, you can tap on the little comment bubble, and then let me zoom back out a second so you can see it. And then you can tweet a reply or a comment to NWS out of Lincoln, Illinois. I'm going to cancel that. The other thing you can do, you can favorite it by tapping that little heart there. And then that's going to make it a favorite. Okay. And then the other one I want to pay a little bit more attention to is this little one that looks like, oops, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Zooming in and out here. This here, which looks like an upload button. When I tap this, I get a couple, oops, sorry. I get a couple of different options of things that I can do with this tweet. So if I wanted to send this to someone directly, meaning a DM or a direct message, I could direct message someone else on Twitter and send them specifically to this post or this tweet. Okay, I'm gonna take a quick drink there. If I want to send a direct message, I can easily do that, and then I can send it to someone that I am friends with on Twitter. Excuse me. I can also bookmark it. And if I bookmark it, I can then find it later in my bookmarks. So if it was very important, I wanted to make sure, excuse me, that I held on to it for later, I could do that. Okay. Any questions about sharing?
I don't see any questions so far.
Excuse me. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to take another sip of water here. A lot of talking today. All right. So we've talked about retweeting, and we've talked about sharing someone else's tweet. I think now we should go ahead and talk about notifications and messages. So in your options on the left-hand side, notifications are going to be in that little thing that looks like a bell. And then here it's going to tell us a notification of, oh, hey, we've logged in from a new device. And then you can review what that device was. Sorry about that. And in this case, we know that that was us because we logged in on this iPad. So that's where that notification came. You can also see down here that they're telling us there's an attempt to log in, and we have some notifications about in case we missed someone's tweet, someone that we follow. The mentions over here, again, remember what I said about mentions. Mentions are when you @ someone, you put the @ sign and then their username. And if someone was to mention us, it would show up in here, okay? For messages, you come back over here, the little envelope are direct messages. We haven't sent direct messages to anyone, but they are private conversations between you and other people on Twitter. So you can share the tweets, you can share information with each other, you can chat. It's basically a private way to contact one particular user or a couple different people at the same time, okay? Questions about messaging?
I don't see any.
Or notifications? Okay, the next thing I want to talk about are moments. And moments are a specific kind of curated story, usually including like newsworthy items or noteworthy topics. Often they have a kind of a pop culture slant or a trend, they're trending. If you go to your profile and you tap on your profile here, oh, sorry, if you tap just underneath your profile on the 3 little dots, And then if you see where it says moments, and you could hit moments. In our case, we don't have any right now, but you could edit or make a moment and then share it with people too. Okay, so that's a little bit about moments. Something else down here, the topics. You can look at specific topics that are trending or suggested topics that you might want to follow. For example, if you wanted to follow space, then the topics you follow are they personalize the tweets and events and ads that you see. So again, this is another way to kind of customize what shows up on that home feed that you have. Okay, all right. And then we talked about mentions and messages, and then bookmarks and sharing a tweet. We've covered all of that. The last thing I want to talk about is creating a list, because sometimes, at least for me, sometimes I can get pretty overwhelmed on Twitter with all of the information that people are sharing and what's, kind of being peppered at you at all times. Okay, so you can create a list, and it's basically a curated list for you of either topics or people that you want to follow, so that you can customize more specifically. You can almost think of it as chunks of your home feed that you're kind of pulling out to put together into a list. So if you look here on our options, the list is the one that looks a little bit like a little notepad. If I tap on that, it's going to show me lists that Twitter is recommending. For example, Fighting Illini Sports. So you could follow all of the different sports teams all at once. I have already created a couple that are private, which means they're just for me. And then one that is open for other people to look at. If we want to create a new list, up here at the very top, the note with the plus sign up here allows me to create a new list. And then I would just enter a name for the new list. So maybe I would, what should we do? Any thoughts, Rebecca? Maybe winter, some winter fun. And then we'll make it private and we'll create it. Okay, so now we have a list. And then if we want to, Twitter is going to give me some examples that include the name winter already, but maybe I would want to pick, you know what I should do? Something like the Olympics, right? Or that might be a better example. Or I can search Twitter for specific accounts and I can add them to that list. So it's also something where, if you wanted to separate out and make a list of your family that's on Twitter versus your friends that are on Twitter, or organizations that you follow versus people that you follow, you could create a list and kind of curate that information. So I'm just going to go ahead and say done here. And then here would be our list, but we're going to go ahead and go back and we'll use one that I've already created. So let's use dog training. So here's my list for dog training, and here's some suggestions for my list. So let's see, dog training. Let's say I'm looking for some training help. So I could pick this top dog training help. I'm like, okay, I see they've got some stuff here. I'll follow them. And then when I go to my list and I go to dog training, there aren't any tweets in the list, but as soon as I edit the list and I include, let me go back for a second. Once I include that dog training into that list, then they'll show up in here. Okay. So lists can kind of help with sort of organizing all of the information and the accounts that you follow. Okay. All right. Any questions about lists?
I don't see any.
Okay. The last thing that I want to cover is how to log out when you're on a mobile device. So it's a little bit tricky because there isn't really an obvious thing that just says log out. So there are a couple of different ways to get there. If I go to my settings, which is in my profile, area here. So settings, the three little dots, sorry, not profile, in the three little dots for more information, and go to settings, and then go into your account information, and then log out. Okay, that's one way to do it. The other way, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So that's the way I usually do it from a mobile device. And then when you come back to the app, you'd log in with your email address and password to get back in. Okay, so that's logging out. If you wanted to create an account for the first time, I do recommend sometimes that that's a little easier to do on the browser version, but you could certainly do it on the mobile version of the app as well once you've downloaded it. Okay, and then Twitter kind of walks you through some questions to help you get started about who you might want to follow based on topics and subjects that you want to follow. Okay, so that's the demo that I have. On the handout, we also have some terms and phrases. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the handout and on the slides, unless anybody would like me to demo something else or has any questions about what we've covered through the live demo part.
I haven't seen any questions.
Okay, we'll go ahead and switch the cameras then. And of course, feel free to raise your hand too if you have questions and you'd like to ask your question out loud. I'm going to go ahead and come back to sharing my screen. So I will switch my video back here. Okay, and then I'm going to share my screen and we'll jump back to the PowerPoint. And then I'm going to show you a couple of things down here at the bottom. So some general terms, oops, sorry, hold on, let me escape that. Some general terms and phrases, let's try to get from current slide, that will come up possibly when you are working with social media sites like Twitter. A bit.ly is actually, bit.ly is a specific company that will allow you to shorten a URL or a website address. Because Twitter allows you to have 280 characters, sometimes people will have really, really long website addresses and they'll shorten the link and clean it up a little bit by using bit.ly. So you might see a lot of them that just say bit.ly and then slash and then whatever the address is for the website. Okay. And we did talk about DMs, those are direct messages, which would be a private message between two or more users on a social media network. So that's not just specifically for Twitter, that's also for Instagram and Facebook. And I think even Pinterest allows you to use direct messaging between people. Okay, so if you ever see HT, it's a hat tip. It's a shorthand to give credit to someone else who first brought some information to your attention that you're then sharing on Twitter. It's not just retweeting someone's tweet, but it's saying, hey, this is a great thing, but I'm not the first one to bring this up. This, HT to this other Twitter user who said it first. Okay. Lists, again, a curated group of Twitter accounts. So you create your own lists and subscribe to lists that are created by others. A list timeline shows you a stream of tweets specifically from those accounts. So that was what we covered just a few minutes ago with lists. Your username or handle, the terms handle and username are usually used interchangeably. So your Twitter handle and your Twitter username are the same thing. And it's what comes after the @ sign. Okay. Okay. We didn't talk about memes, but one thing that gets shared a lot on Twitter are memes, which are basically humorous video or images that are shared online. And it's copied and then adjusted with words, slightly adjusted with meanings, and then it spreads rapidly across the internet and gets shared widely. Okay. As we talked about mentions, they're specific to Twitter. They use the @ symbol and a person's Twitter name to call the person's attention to what they've said about them or getting a hold of them in a way. Microblogging is the frequent short posts like what you see on Twitter. An RT or retweet, we've talked about what retweeting is, but you can also call it an RT for short. to at someone is using the at symbol in front of their name to get their attention on social media. And trolling is someone who deliberately starts a quarrel or tries to sow discord by posting inflammatory or off-topic messages in an online forum or environment. And a tweet is a post that's made on Twitter. A Twitter thread is a series of tweets made by the same person regarding the same topic, usually in quick succession in order to complete their thought or viewpoint on the topic. Okay. And then I have a couple of additional resources for you. Excuse me. GCF Learn Free. Twitter has their own help center. You can also sign up for a LinkedIn Learning account with the Champaign library card, and then check out some Twitter tutorials on LinkedIn Learning. And then of course we do have some print books in the collection as well. Take another drink there. Okay. And then that's all I have for today. Are there other questions or things you'd like me to demo again?
I don't see any questions.
Okay, so I just want to mention, like we do each week, if you have questions, we can help. We can do book a librarian appointments. We have live chat, and you can also reach out via email. Rebecca will also put my email and hers in the chat in case you'd like to reach out that way. And then we also have webinars that you can watch anytime of previously recorded tech workshops like this on YouTube, excuse me, and you can go to champaign.org/YouTube to find those. And then our upcoming workshops for the rest of this month, we will be doing Microsoft Word, covering formatting, creating and saving documents, formatting documents, adding bullet points, headers and footers, and then formatting and working with images. And then here's my information at the end, just in case you'd like to reach out. And that is everything I have today for Twitter. Any questions or comments? I'll go ahead and stop sharing. I'll jump back here.
I don't see any questions or comments,
okay.
But thank you for that lovely breakdown of Twitter. It's a lot of stuff on there.
There is a lot of stuff on Twitter, and they are updating it. The Twitter Blue thing is new. That I just learned about that today, since I hadn't logged in a little while. And they can send notifications. So if you check your notifications and settings, you can get notifications sent via email when someone has mentioned you or done something to. So you don't always have to do it directly from the app. Though I do find that it's sometimes a little easier if it goes right from the app.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Anybody?
That'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Any questions? Anybody want to speak their question out loud? No?
I don't see any raised hands or any questions in the chat. Okay.
Well, hopefully y'all can join us next week for Intro to Microsoft Word.
Yes, we're kicking off that new
3-part series. Dun, 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 dun. And then we'll cover Excel and PowerPoint in March. So, alrighty. Okay. Well, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.